So are we ready to get started? Alrighty. Well, thank you guys for coming. This is the Sound Worship Media Training at the Woods. I'm Tyler. And if you would, for circle which, if you want to be here for just sound, just computer, both, or whatever. And I think we'll get started with a little video.
We're just about ready for the big show to start here in sunny Steepleville, and what a day it is. It just doesn't get any better than this. I'm Bob Cobb, joined by my colleague Taffy Babler, and you're looking at beautiful aerial shots provided by Airship Worship, now broadcasting in HD.
And you love to see the players getting focused, getting their mind right, getting in the proverbial zone.
And here are the starting lineups, brought to you today by Stump & Sons Altars, keeping knees at ease since 1933.
Dan Verboski, pastor, the Bamford Theological Seminary.
Jerry Woodwind, worship, Eastern Southwest Central School of Divinity.
Frank Banter, associate assistant to the intern of the Executive Minister of Community Ministry, GED.
Jerry, how is the injury?
It's fine. There's some soreness. X-rays were negative, but I should be fine as long as I stay away from B-flat. So.
Are you worried about re-injuring it?
As long as I play hard and play at my pace, I think I should be fine.
Have you ever bet on attendance?
What?
Have you ever taken anabolic steroids?
No.
Have you ever lip-synced worship?
Listen, we're about to get started here.
And here's the kickoff. And it's a slow play. Wow, that's big.
You're the home team. You want to have a surprise or two up your sleeve. What I call mix-it-up ability.
It sounds like the new Darlene Zek or Zeke or Zeku.
Zeesh.
Yeah, is it Zichi maybe?
Darlene Zeesh.
Let's go to our sideline reporter, Billy Sturpot.
This crowd seems a little bit lethargic, but this town is known for late crowds, so maybe by halftime they'll be a little more into it.
It looks like Johnny Weems is headed for an early exit.
Chiefs fan. They play at 11.
Oh my, look at this, a huge error, enormous.
You're the media team. You're leading the league in fumbles. You can't let this happen. You can't let this happen.
Terrible timing, especially on a new song. Look at this crowd, it's bedlam.
Pandemonious.
And look at Maggie Jensen, veteran overloud singer. She hasn't missed a word. What a performance.
One of the greats, Bob. One of the greats.
All right, so that was a little parody on the importance of media, in worship and stuff. Obviously, media is something that usually doesn't get too terribly much recognition until you mess up, and then then it's right. Exactly. It's bad. So, all right, let me make sure I get control back of the clicker. Little fun little another slide that kind of shows everything. I'm sure you guys have seen stuff like this on Facebook. What I think I'm doing, just standing there, running the soundboard. What my friends think I'm doing, usually they're, they kind of have that opinion that, oh, you're a part of the band and you're just gonna trash everything too. What the bands think I'm doing, they're usually, just thinking that you're in the other room playing around and, but what I'm actually doing, obviously, it is quite a bit of work. So, come on. No, I think it just, what the heck?
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Obviously, this is the soundboard. the what's it called? The booth. And you guys will be able to get into that a little bit later on. There we go. Now I got control of it. This is the sound session. And then as far as the actual booth, the right side is the where the sound operator sits. They are controlling the soundboard, pretty much all, and all that stuff too, which we'll get into the soundboard in a second. Up here we have our wireless microphone receivers. So those basically allow us to, obviously this to be heard, allows this to be heard a lot of the time if you walk up there and, the microphone's on, I'm talking, but I'm not hearing it through the system. That is a common thing that a lot of people miss. But yeah, that's something that that won't turn on by itself when we kick on the entire system. So you'll have to do that. Up here we've got one of the wireless mics. We've got the remote to the DVD player right here. We've also got this little remote which turns the projector on and off. The DVD player and the VCR player, which we, like I mentioned before, the infrared extender is kind of out of commission right now. So once we get another infrared extender, we'd be able to switch to that. And if we have a VHS tape or something like that that they want to use, we have that to be able to play it. Underneath here, we also have a 5-disc changer for any CDs that want to be played, and then underneath we have the system amps, which you guys won't ever have to worry about messing with. What those do is it takes the signal from the board and it processes it and it sends it out to the speakers. But yeah, like I said, that's just something that will come on. Right at the bottom here underneath, you have the power strip, which when you walk by, you kick that on and that turns on everything except for the wireless receivers. So, and then obviously this is the soundboard. It may look a little, intimidating to some people. We'll come back to that in a couple minutes, but right now I kind of want to explain some things so you guys know how to set the stage. So if you come in and you are, like it's a day after a wedding or a funeral or something like that, and there's nothing on the stage, how do you set it up? Well, first we have to talk about connectors, which, I mean, for obvious reasons, they call them the male end and the female end. And there's 3 different types of connections that we have. On the stage, we use 2 of them. We use XLR for the microphones and to patch into the panels on the wall. We have 1/4 inch that is used for instruments and the monitor wedges, and then the 1/8 inch mini pin, or people also refer to them as headphone jacks, we use in the booth to connect the mixer to the computer, so the computer's patched into the system. And then, like I mentioned before, 1/4 inch is used for monitor jacks, for the monitors, which are the speakers. That's basically just a term that we use for the speakers on stage for the performers to be able to hear yourself, or hear themselves. And that's what one of the 3 monitor wedges that we have on the stage. We also have a small little monitor on the back, so that way anybody standing behind a lot of the people, they can hear too. Jacks and adapters. So when you are up, you're up there and you're hooking everything up, and you realize, oh, the jack on the wall is XLR, and the instrument that I have is 1/4 inch, but we don't have any 1/4 inch to XLR cables. How do we hook those up? We use a direct input box, which this is one of them right here. On one side, you'll see that it has XLR jack, and that's what plugs into the wall. And then on the other side, you'll see that we have a 1/4 inch jack that plugs into the instrument, and that's what takes it into the wall jack, which looks like that. And we also do another jack that we have in the floor. We have 1/4 inch for the monitors as well. And that's what that one looks like. And you would put the 1/4 inch into that, and then you'd put another end into this jack, which is on the side of the monitor. All right, now we're going to talk about the mixer, which, like I said, at a glance you'll look at and be like, whoa, that's a lot of buttons. I don't want to mess anything up. It's really not that. It's not as complicated as it looks. It's just literally a bunch of these repeated a whole bunch of times. So, and we call that a channel on the board. And then we also have a couple of other things, which, I mean, if you can get what all these dials up here do, this won't be an issue to learn. So the masters, which is part of what's over here, that's the volume of the entire board. So another common error that a lot of people make when they run the board, they turn up the slider on one of the channels, and they talk into it, and they don't hear nothing's coming through the system. They but the like with the wireless microphone, the receiver's on, the board's unmuted, it's slid all the way up, but you still can't hear anything. A lot of the time, I've done this more times than I'd like to admit, but a lot of the time it's because the masters are down. If the masters are down, you're not going to hear anything out of the board. So, and then now we're going to get into the anatomy of each channel. The slider, sometimes we also refer to it as a submaster. That's what controls the volume of the channel. So each thing that you have on the stage is on its own specific channel. You've got the lead singer, you've got the keyboard, you've got the bass guitar, you've got all the different mics. They're on its own little separate channel, which is why there are so many on the board. And the reason why we call the board a mixer is, if you think about it like you're making a batter or something like that, you're mixing a batter in a bowl. You don't want, in a lot of things, you don't want as much sugar as you do flour, or vice versa. Same thing with when you're mixing sound. You don't want the backup singers to be as loud as your lead, or the bass guitar to be as loud as like the keyboard or something like that, because it's going to overpower. You don't want everything at the same level. You want them at different levels, and that's where your personal judgment with the way that things sound come into play. And that's the easiest way to do it, is just to kind of play with the sliders. Now, what these little dials they're actually called pots. And those basically control everything else, and I've got a little list of everything that is controlled there. The game is the thing that's going to be at the very top of your board. Now what that does is that controls the pickup range of a microphone. So you have, somebody who wants to make an announcement during church or something like that, but they hold the microphone way down here and they talk this quiet, and it's really, really hard to understand them, and you can't, and you're, and you can't, you're trying to get it to where you're trying to accommodate for that. What the game does is there's a certain thing on each mic called a pickup pattern, which is the area that your sound waves, when you talk, it'll pick up. So if you talk like this, or you talk over here or something like that, it'll pick it up. And what the game does is it takes like this and it expands it to where, hopefully if you have this person right here, it should, sometimes if you get, if it's up a lot, you'll get feedback, and so that's what's gonna make it hard to be able to do with that. That's why it's hard. That you want the microphone close to your mouth. You don't want it way down here, because if you try to do that, you're battling feedback and you don't know, it's hard. And so the next part, we have the equalizer pots, which is something that I could get into a whole nother training about. But basically it controls the pitch of the sound. So the dial all the way at the bottom, that's a low. So if that's ridden all the way up, you can make a woman sound like this, or like just the same way. If everything else is down and you have the high up, you can make a man sound like a chipmunk. So it just controls the pitch of all of that, and sometimes it's nice to be able to mess with that to make the somebody's voice sound a little more enticing. Down here we have the monitor pots, and it's also very well labeled on the side of the board. That is what controls the on each channel. It controls the amount that's coming through the monitors. So if you're as a sound person, you're really happy with the way that everything sounds, but on stage, like a lot of people are like, well, I can't hear the lead guitar, or I can't hear the keyboard. What you're gonna want to do, if you're happy with the way that it sounds out in the house, you turn up the monitor so that way the performers can hear themselves too. Down here you have the auxiliary pots, which are they control the volume in the recording. Now that we can make it sound completely like the recording completely different than how we sound out here. Generally, we want to simulate what's going on out here as much as possible. So that's how we mix. We don't use it to mess with the levels in the recording. We use that to kind of mix how that sounds. And now, down here we have the effects pot, which I have on this channel turned all the way up. Hopefully I don't get too much feedback. But it makes the channel sound like this. And you can do, special effects, and that's another thing that we'll get into in a second, because there's another area on the board that allows you to select the certain type of effect that you want on there. Next, we have the pan pots, which here in our sound system, we don't run in stereo, we run in mono. And so those we really don't have to worry about, because I think if it's turned all the way to the left, you won't be able to hear it. If it's turned all the way to the right, then it doesn't really do anything, because it's all coming out of that right speaker. Now, like if ever the opportunity comes where you want to, like where you're producing some sort of music or some sort of audio, and you ever wanted to do like a surround sound type of effect where there's a guy talking right here and a lady talking right here, and you want just their voice to come out on this side and her voice to come out on this other side, that's what you would do, is you would turn it all the way to each side. And so that's the way that they kind of do that. And then finally at the bottom, we have the mute button, which if you are watching TV and you hit the mute button, what does it do? It cuts all the audio off of it. And same thing with this, is that specific channel will mute you, so you don't have, so you're not going to be heard out of the system. Now, going back to the effects, this is it's actually found up here. This is where the effects panel is, and then you can see the slider right here. And that allows you to select the type of effect. So you can be in a hall or a cave, or you can sound like an alien, or something like that. That's what you do. And up here, it has this little square button underneath the list and inside the square. That's the button that each time you push it, that selects a new effect. And then it's also got a mute button and a PFL button, which I'll get into what the PFL does in a little bit. And then it also has a master to contain or to like control the whole amount that across the board that it'll give. So, and then like I was showing before, this is where the effect pod is, to be able to control the prevalence and all of that. So now out of this, it doesn't necessarily look so scary anymore, does it? It's all the same. Right here you got your channels, everything that we just talked about. Got your masters right here. Right here is your monitor master. So these speakers are all in a separate thing. And then your effects panel, and the next thing that I'm going to be talking about is this thing up here, the VU meter, and that's where the PFL buttons come into play. Those little circle buttons underneath the mute button allows you to take that individual channel and put it into the VU monitor, and that's what those the meter that you see, every time that people show anything about sound or something like that, the VU meter usually comes to mind, because that's those lights that kind of go like this, and that actually monitors the recording, so that's the scale that shows when we're recording it. We want that peaking at about the lights peaking just in the yellow, or right at about 0. Otherwise it's going to be overmodulated, and it's going to sound like this, all muffled, and like you're in the drive-thru at McDonald's or something. And which kind of leads me to my next point. It is a proven fact that people will tolerate bad video before they tolerate bad audio. Because if you are watching DirecTV or something, and the weather's bad and the satellite kind of flickers, it takes you a minute before you want to change the channel, right? But if you're driving down the road and you're listening to music and you hear the faintest bit of static, your first reaction is to change the channel. That's kind of, one of those things that we can live with bad video quality, but it's really, really hard to listen to bad audio, and that's why, a lot of the time, if you're watching a live stream and you hear, you don't want to watch it if you hear it muffled because of that. Like I said, I kind of pretty much explained what the VU meter is. VU stands for volume unit, so just like a pound or an ounce or something like that. This is your unit of measurement with sound, and it's a digital scale, lights up. Some people may have seen the analog scale is actually that little like gauge thing that goes wacko. We don't have that on our board though. When you monitor that, it is imperative with the mixer that you PFL the individual channels and make sure that it's not writing, because we do have a mixer over with the live stream, but all that is that's transmitting the live feed that we're already giving as a sound person. So if we give them so it's really, really hard to polish something that's that you can't really work with in the first place. And so that's kind of what we would be doing with that. And then, like I said, you want to make sure that it's that the highest part of your music or whatever it is that you're recording is either at 0 or like just peaking in the yellow. So otherwise, and you definitely, like, the red is a no zone, because that's when it's gonna sound really bad. And in a second, you're gonna hear example of that. But yeah, this right here is kind of where we want. We don't. I mean, we this is kind of acceptable as long as it doesn't really go past that on its highest points. Now, this is obviously what I was saying that we don't really want, because this.
So, would you like to stand up and sing and worship together? We're going to worship the Lord here this morning together. Said the night went to the middle.
And sometimes it'll just completely cut out like that if it's really bad. So, does anybody have any questions? I know I kind of ran through that a little fast.
Do you think maybe like sometime in the future you could print out a copy of what all the control buttons do?
The buttons, yeah, like that little slide that I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can print out a copy. So, yes.
Do you check the channels every week, or?
It normally, if you with what we've been doing lately, it's a good idea to, because of the fact that there's a couple of people that have run sound before that don't really know that should be here too, and so sometimes the way that the board is left, you can't necessarily always trust that. Also, with the amount of stuff that we have going on, like every week we always have a different being, you know, a different number of people, it's kind of hard because they're usually in, because like when I set things up, I usually set them left to right to where we don't have that much spaghetti on the stage, like we don't have cables going every which way, because that's when it starts to look bad on the stage. So not every time does the instruments stay in the same place. So it's usually a smart thing to get in the habit of doing it each week. Yeah.
Just do that while we're practicing.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Alrighty. Well, you guys want to get started on doing some of this stuff? Alrighty. Let's